If you're feeling lost, if life isn't going the way you hoped, then this story is for you. A reminder that God's plan is always greater than your pain. Many years ago, in a peaceful village surrounded by gentle green hills, lived a farmer named Robert. He wasn't wealthy, nor did he dream of luxury. He was a simple man who believed in hard work, prayer, and patience. His little farm sat on the edge of the valley where the morning sun always seemed to rise a bit earlier and shine a bit longer. Robert's greatest treasure was his horse, a strong brown stallion that helped him plow the fields, carry wood, and travel to the nearby town. It wasn't just an animal, it was his companion, his helper, his friend. But one morning as Robert went to the stable, he found the gate wide open. The horse was gone. He searched every corner of the fields, asked his neighbors, followed the tracks until they disappeared into the forest, but there was no sign of his horse. That evening, the villagers gathered around him. "Robert," they said, "this is terrible. You've lost your only horse. How will you work now? How will you survive?" Robert looked at them calmly, smiled faintly, and said, "Maybe yes, maybe no. God knows best." The villagers shook their heads. They couldn't understand how a man could lose something so valuable and still be at peace. But Robert had lived long enough to know, not every loss is a curse. A week passed. One morning as Robert was working near the field, he heard the sound of hooves. He looked up, and there was his horse running back toward him. But this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it ran 3 wild horses, following closely as if they had chosen to come home with it. The villagers rushed to see the sight. "Robert," they exclaimed, "you are the luckiest man in the village. You've lost one horse and gained 4. What a miracle." Robert chuckled softly and replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no. God knows best." The villagers laughed. They thought Robert was being foolishly humble. But deep down, Robert understood something they didn't. Blessings and trials often wear the same disguise. A few days later, Robert's only son, Daniel, tried to tame one of the new horses. The animal was wild and powerful, and Daniel was young and eager. He held on to the reins with determination, but in one swift movement, the horse kicked and Daniel fell hard onto the ground. The next moment, the boy screamed in pain. His leg was badly broken. The villagers came again. "Oh, Robert," they sighed, "you were wrong this time. This is truly bad luck. What good can come from this?" But Robert, tending to his son, simply said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." God knows best. Weeks passed. Daniel couldn't walk, couldn't help with the fields. The work was slow, the days were hard. Yet every night Robert would light a small lamp and pray. He never asked God why. He only said, "Thank you for everything I understand and for everything I don't." Then one morning, soldiers arrived in the village. A war had broken out in the kingdom, and every able young man was ordered to join. Every house echoed with cries. Mothers wept, wives trembled, fathers tried to stay strong. But when the soldiers saw Daniel lying on his bed with a broken leg, they shook their heads and moved on. "He's unfit for battle," they said. The next day the soldiers and all the young men marched away. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. News began to travel back. Most of the young men who went to war never returned. Robert's son was alive, safe at home. When the villagers heard this, they came to Robert once more. "Robert," they said, "you were right all along. What we thought was bad was truly a blessing." Robert looked at them kindly and said, "When you trust God's plan, you learn that even pain has purpose. What breaks you today might be saving you from something far worse tomorrow." He looked up at the sky, his eyes full of peace. He still didn't have much, but he had something far greater than riches: faith. From that day forward, the villagers remembered Robert's words. Whenever misfortune struck, they no longer panicked or cursed their fate. They would simply whisper to themselves, "Maybe yes, maybe no. God knows best." The lesson is this: sometimes what feels like loss is God's hidden mercy. Sometimes what feels like delay is divine timing. And sometimes what breaks you today prepares you for tomorrow's blessings. Apply these actions in your daily life. Trust the process. When life shifts unexpectedly, say to yourself, God's plan is still perfect. Stay thankful. Write down 3 things you're grateful for, even on your worst days. Be patient in faith. Remember, faith isn't proven in comfort. It's proven in waiting. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe for more motivational stories that strengthen your faith and remind you you're never forgotten in God's plan. Your purpose is unfolding even when you can't see it.